Blind gay people of Reddit, how did you know you were gay? A common misconception about being gay is that the awareness of being gay is any different than the awareness of being straight. Here's how I know I'm straight: I'm a guy. At a certain age, I started feeling differently around girls. I like to look at them in a certain way. I like to hear their voices, and to be around them. I like to dance with them and hold their hands. I like to kiss them and hug them, and talk on the phone to them well into the night. In serious relationships, I would feel like there just wasn't enough time, because we each had to go to our respective homes, instead of just staying up all night and talking, which was all we wanted to do. Eventually I learned that this was what it was like to be straight. But I never thought of it as being straight. It was just how I was. My son is gay. And all I can hope is that he has the opportunity to feel the same things while he's young as I did at his age. And I don't care who he feels that way about, nearly as much as some people think I should. Now that you mention it, I think a more interesting question is how blind people know they're straight. In the top comment right now there's a quote from a blind man who didn't even know the difference between boys and girls at the age of 15. The only thing you could notice that was different would be their voices. Nowadays blind kids probably read a lot online, but I imagine it's a difficult way to absorb that information. How does a blind person go about reading something online? Assisted reading devices/programs. Basically software that reads a page out loud for you. Here's an actual answer: http://www.bentvoices.org/bentvoices/feinstein-blindandgay.htm. Edit: the whole story is worth a read, but here is a relevant bit. I knew that I was very different from the other kids, and I felt horribly lonely. I didn't fit in with the sighted kids, but what was worse, I didn't fit in with the blind kids, either. All the boys were interested in sports and rough games. I wasn't. Some talked about girls, but because I was blind from birth, and because nobody ever talked to me about sex, I had no idea what was being discussed. I am ashamed to say that I didn't even know the difference between girls and boys, except that girls were usually nicer to me, and yet, I felt a strange feeling when hugging a male student. When I was 15 years old, a girl explained to me how babies were born. "You're very stupid," Harriet told me. "Your father stuck his penis in your mother's hole, and that's how you were born. Don't you know anything?" I wanted to ask more questions. Where was this hole? What was all this talk about hard-ons and erections? But I knew that if I admitted how little I knew, I'd be laughed at, so I kept quiet. I could not ask my mother. She never talked about such things, and I knew she would only be upset and tell me not to ask so many questions. So, I ordered books in Braille about sex, and read them, and had a vague understanding. What is surprising, and very important, is that I began to realize that I was attracted to other boys and men, and not to women. I realized that I had a strange feeling when close to people of my own sex that I did not have when I was with women. I somehow knew that this was not the way it should be, and never mentioned it to anyone. I've corresponded with him over email for the past few years. He's a fascinating guy. Very sad story. Did he ever find a fulfilling relationship? How does a blind person gauge the attractiveness of people? He never did. I think he said that a lot of attractiveness is in voice for him. That's really depressing. I'm going to make a point to share his story with the being gay is a choice crowd. This guy's case is yet another example of where choosing to be gay has literally no benefits and leads to a sadder life. No way he chose to be gay. Thanks for the response. The rest of this could be deleted and this left as the only post, and the world would actually be better for it. Thank you for finding that. That guy is a demographic within a demographic, and I cannot imagine how difficult his life would be at times. That being said, Taxi sounds both hell fun to the 10-year-old inside my head, and a bit scary for the grown adult in me with the louder voice. Yet, without a serious tag, this whole comment section is just people trying to one-up each other with lame puns. Glad I could find at least one real answer. There's a guy at my work who's gay. For the first few months working with him, he never mentioned his husband. I think working with him over a year before we all became buddies that he accidentally let it slip twice that he was gay and had a husband. He tries to be very professional with it, as it's, unfortunately, controversial and he's the boss. It took my recent wedding to finally get it out of him. While planning for some things, I asked him what he did. He looked at me and said, "You know I'm gay, right?" The only appropriate response I could think of was, "Oh, thank God you knew. I didn't want to be the one to have to tell you." He's been a bit more open about it ever since, but I found it incredibly sad that he wasn't able to talk about his husband openly without feeling like people will persecute him for it. Seriously, I absolutely love my wife and could talk about her for hours. 95% of anything worthwhile that I do is with her. I couldn't imagine having to keep silent, or not talk about you're so like that, in a job that forces you to socialize a lot. Anyway, I'm done ranting.